Carl and I debated this, and it was very disappointing to me because not only was Carl wrong, he also fudged data. He published a picture of the face in Parade magazine, a popular article saying that the face is just a natural formation. But he doctored the picture to make it not look like a face. And I began to realize just directly from a scientific point of view, not only hearsay, that this man was colluding with NASA, that there might be more to this than before. And then when I started studying things like MJ-12 and other organizations that were covering up the UFO phenomenon, Carl was on a committee with a number of notable people. There was a report issued by the Brookings Institution in 1961, and that's about when I knew Carl. During those years, the 60s mostly, is when I worked closely with him. That he and this other group said, well, if any ETs ever showed up on the Earth, it has to be covered up. That's the only way we're going to be able to manage this, because if we can't, it would be too much of a culture shock. So their recommendation to the government in 1961 was to cover up the UFO phenomenon. And I think in a way that provided a justification for the ongoing cover-up. Way back in 61 was to keep things secret.
But Bob and Brian aren't alone in their claims. We also find very accomplished scientists and mechanical engineers who are involved with NASA who basically share the same story. We'll share some links in the author comments so that you can read up on all of these responses to Cydonia and the face on Mars. And with that, it's about time we return to our story. Now in the Enuma Elish, it says that Marduk placed 300 Anunnaki in the heavens and 600 on the earth, or the netherworld, depending on the translation. And all of these Anunnaki were led by 12 leaders. Sitchin believed that this was attempting to describe that there were 600 worker Anunnaki who came to earth to dig the gold, who were led by 12 supervisors or bosses. The 300 gods in the heavens were believed to be another 300 Anunnaki who stayed in orbit on their mothership above the surface of the planet, similar to how we have the International Space Station in orbit today. To begin their mission, the Anunnaki first went to the Middle East. Sitchin believed it to be in the area of present-day Iraq, where in 7 days they established Eridu. Eridu is commonly believed to be the oldest Sumerian site across all of Mesopotamia. And is it possible that this is where the 7 days of creation come from in Genesis? Either way, it was here that they established their headquarters. For the gold, however, they went to mine a specific valley in Southeast Africa, where the largest natural deposit of gold was known to be. Of the 12 supervisors, Enlil was the leader of the whole operation, and Enki was second in command. The Anunnaki carved deep into the earth and dug large quantities of gold. Then, every 3,600 years when planet Nibiru came around, they would shuttle the gold to their homeworld and return to digging while Nibiru traveled its orbit again. Now, according to Sitchin and supporting theorists, they dug for a very long time, about 100,000 to 150,000 years before the rebellion took place. Somewhere between 300,000 and 200,000 years ago, the Anunnaki workers rebelled against their bosses. They did not want to keep digging in the mines. One can easily imagine them saying, "We've been digging gold for 150,000 years and we're tired of it, we're done." The rebellion presented a problem for the supervisors, and something had to be done. This is where Enlil and Enki come into the story in a very prominent way. If you recall, in the original Sumerian story, we had 2 versions of the conception of humans. In one, it was Namu's idea, and in the other, Enlil told Namu the idea, who gave it to Enki. So as our story goes, during the time of the rebellion, Enki's mother communicated with Enki while he slept, sending him a vision saying, "Oh, my son, arise from thy bed, from thy slumber. Work what is wise, fashion servants for the gods." Due to the variations, it's not clear about where the true origins of this vision come from, but nevertheless, Enki awakens from this vision-filled slumber and suggests creation of servants for the gods. According to the story, Enki himself creates human beings out of a mixture of clay and the blood of the slain Kingu. This is another time where we have 2 different interpretations converging on each other, because earlier we saw how Kingu was interpreted to be the moon, but now Kingu seems to be a being with flesh and blood, for it is with Kingu's DNA that provides the necessary ingredients for human genetics. What is Kingu, really? Looking at the rest of this description, we see a few more possible interpretations. To some, the term clay doesn't mean like physical clay, but earthly matter, including pre-existing life. And many believe that this line actually means that humans were created in a synthesis of Anunnaki DNA and the DNA of the highest form of primitive life available on the earth. This then would suggest that humans weren't necessarily created, but came from a modification of an earlier hominid species, which was most likely either Homo erectus or Homo heidelbergensis. For years, we've been struggling to find the missing link between our species, Homo sapiens, and our predecessors. And this search is still taking place today. Perhaps this is our missing link. What's especially interesting about this is the timeline, because we currently understand that Homo sapiens emerged roughly 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, which is said to be right about when the Anunnaki rebellion took place. Throughout the tablets, genetics and the transformation of the human being are recurring themes. In the Flower of Life books, which originally put a lot of different pieces together in these stories, Drumfalo puts forth another piece of information that is very intriguing. He describes that in order to create a new species, you need both a father species and a mother species. Just like in order to create a child, you need a mother and a father. Drumfalo said that the Anunnaki were our mother species because they did the actual birthing, and that our father species were actually the Sirians, or at least a species from the star system Sirius. So to be very clear, these beings came from Sirius, not Syria, which is one of the closest stars to us and the brightest star in the sky. Well, not counting the sun. Okay, second brightest. Now, while the Anunnaki were primarily a third-dimensional species, the Sirians were fourth-dimensional, and so were able to come to our planet in a way that was probably like tessering from A Wrinkle in Time. In a stunning ritual, he described that these beings traveled here interdimensionally and entered directly into the womb of the halls of Amenti and before the Flower of Life, the sacred heart of all consciousness on the planet. Because they understood everything was light and energy, in their fourth dimension, they created 32 rose quartz slabs and then laid down upon them and entered into a long meditation, conceiving a new consciousness. Then Enki on the third dimension created a laboratory human egg, a genetic fusion of Anunnaki DNA and the DNA of the previous hominid species, and put them into Anunnaki women who were volunteering to do this. The new seeds of consciousness created by the Sirians then entered into the eggs and impregnated the women who nurtured them for what probably felt like 9 months or so and bore them as children. Now, let's be clear that this part about the Sirians is not found in the Sumerian tablets themselves, and so it's not grounded in any ancient writing. But it's a very compelling idea nonetheless, especially because of its implications, that the Anunnaki developed our bodies, but not our souls. And I mean, who knows? Maybe they were the bird people. Then again, it might all just be a fun idea and nothing more, because just as much as the Sirians could be said to be our father species, it could also be said that Homo erectus was our father species, the seed that was nurtured into something new. Ultimately, after all was said and done, the tablets write that the Anunnaki had created an entirely new species of life on planet Earth, and that species was us. The legends in the ancient tablets are very clear that the Anunnaki created humans to support and serve the gods and help maintain all of creation. A lot of questions still remain though. What happened once we were created, and how did we earn our freedom? The plan for the Anunnaki was to create a more advanced race than Earth had at the time, to use for the purpose of mining gold and performing other laborious tasks. This, according to these interpretations of the ancient Sumerian records, was our original purpose as a species, a slave race to mine gold. Sitchin believed that the Anunnaki's original intention was to use us to mine all of the gold that they needed, and then destroy our race and leave the planet once they had no more use for us. What's amazing about this interpretation is that there are some incredible discoveries we've made in recent years that lend some merit to the story. As we previously discussed, we have first the timeline itself. The sudden emergence of Homo sapiens 200,000 to 300,000 years ago is a huge piece in the puzzle. What caused this dramatic jump in evolution from Homo erectus or Homo heidelbergensis at this time frame? Today, archaeologists still have a difficult time explaining it. I don't want to outright suggest that it was explicitly the Anunnaki. Maybe it was a big cosmic monolith from 2001, A Space Odyssey. That'd be pretty cool. Then again, the tablets say it was Enki, so let's go with that for now. Now, here's where we have something very curious, and if you haven't heard it before, brace yourself because it's pretty amazing. Right in the area where the Sumerian records state that we mined gold, archaeologists have found what may actually be gold mines. And these ancient ruins are believed by some to date back as far as 200,000 years. Stay open while we go through this, because there's a lot of mystery here and even more debate around the nature of these ruins. So we'll do our best to cover all sides of the argument. Archaeologists, anthropologists, and historians don't really have an answer about how these colossal sites could exist back from 200,000 years ago, which is why many still debate that they're only 25,000 years old, or somewhere between those numbers. The general consensus in the mainstream world is that they're just early human settlements, not gold mines. However, even if this is true, Even if these sites are not ancient gold mines, the magnitude of these ruins, even dating them at their most recent date, throws a huge wrench in our modern preconceptions about the origins of agriculture and civilization, with historian Professor Peter Delius and archaeologist Dr. Alex Schumann putting forth that they are a clear indication of an ancient technological and agricultural innovation long before the colonial era. Along with these amazing insights, we also have the discovery of what is now called Adam's calendar, which is a curious arrangement of ancient blocks aligned perfectly with the movements of the sun, solstices, and equinoxes. Today, these sites are known as the Bocconi ruins, named after the Bocconi people who trace back to the early 16th century, despite clear evidence that these ruins date back thousands upon thousands of years prior. The ruins themselves today are generally neglected by the government and heritage institutions and are getting damaged over time, but some have been saved thanks to the initiatives of private owners. These ruins are a giant complex of circular structures connected by channels and suspended in an expansive web of agricultural terraces. If we assume these were dwellings, some suggest it could have held an absolutely massive population, which is unimaginable to think something like this could exist so long ago. But now, here's where things get even more interesting. Extensive electronic measurements that took place of these ruins in 2011 have shown that the circular stone ruins are actually energy generating devices, using the natural sounds that emanate from the earth to create strong electromagnetic fields as a result of sound amplification. The shapes of these circular ruins are specific and unique because each circle represents the cymatic pattern of the sound energy as it appears on the surface of the earth at that point. And just briefly, in case you're unfamiliar with it, cymatics is a word derived from the Greek chyma, meaning wave, and ta chymatica, meaning matters pertaining to waves. The study of cymatics was pioneered by a Swiss medical doctor and natural scientist named Hans Jenny. He was able to create a physical representation of vibration, or how sound manifests into form, through the medium of various materials. This fascinating work offers profound insights into both the physical sciences and esoteric philosophies, and illustrates the very principles which inspired the ancient Greek philosophers. These cymatic images are truly awe-inspiring, not only for their visual beauty in portraying the inherent responsiveness of matter to sound, but also because they inspire a deep recognition that we too are intrinsically connected to the same complex vibrational matrix of reality. As we explored way back in Spirit Science 7, the particles that make up the entire universe move in these very same geometric wave-like patterns. So we can see that at every level of reality, the essence of cymatics is present. Now, let us pretend that these really are ancient gold mines, as many people today believe they are. It would appear then that with a deep understanding of the phenomenon of cymatics, that the Anunnaki were able to mine gold or perhaps move it around using the frequencies of the earth. And thus their gold mines were designed very specifically to resonate with the sounds of the planet, allowing them to do their work more easily. We know today that sound levitation is fully a thing and may even be a great key to flying vehicles one day. So is it possible that these sites are the ancient remnant of sound levitation and like uses on an absolutely massive scale? Some sites, such as this one, are even more unique, having seemed to be constructed to very precise phi ratios. I know that so far we've been drawing all of these miners with pickaxes, and we're going to continue to, but please know that this is for the ease of telling the story for us today. To these ancient miners, they'd probably think pickaxes were a fairly limited and primitive technology. Regarding these ruins, the man responsible for leading the research on the electromagnetic fields of these sites is Michael Tellinger, who wrote the following about his experience there.